All right, so we got Nick Kuzia on the show today. Kuz pitching on Instagram or Nicky Kuz. I see on the Twitter bio he's got Chick-fil-A member, silver, platinum. I see all the stuff that he's got on social media. He's gone from 77 to 100 miles per hour here. Guy that I played against in college, and for one day we were teammates in the NECBL in Sanford. So I'm excited to have him along today, and hopefully get a little bit of insight on how I can throw 100 myself. So welcome to the show, Nick. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Justin. I appreciate it.
Yeah, so I want to get into this whole story here with the whole 100 mile per hour thing. Was that gun really 100 out in Arizona, or is it juiced up with the heat out there?
That gun was real, man. I tell you, there's some people that doubt it, but I promise you it's real. Because I'm not the only one. There's a bunch of guys out there.
Well, yeah, and it looked hard too. Like you can tell. It's just you watch enough videos and you see enough games, you know when it's fast and when it's not. So that what kind of went into it? Were you throwing that hard last season with the Padres, or what? How'd that?
Last season with the Padres, I think my average fastball velo was about 91. And the year prior was like 90. So I was, low 90s righty reliever out of the pen. Had some good run, good sink, and a pretty good slider, so I can get away with some things. But I wanted to attack my velo and get that up because that's how you're probably going to get to the big leagues. If you can throw harder, it's harder to hit. That's just a fact. So I thought it'd be good to do that. And then, that's a long story. I guess we can get started with it. I got out to spring training this year. I had figured out a couple things this off season that I thought would help my velo, and it was kind of showing. I'd run the pocket radar in my video kind of thing, and I was popping a lot more 93, 94s in my bullpens alone in the off season facility. So I thought I had something figured out, and then get the spring training. Velo was pretty up there, 91, 94 in those outings, live ABs, a couple of them. And then Corona hit. So then we got shut down, and I was out in Arizona when that happened at the end of March. And my girlfriend actually came out with me, and she had a travel nurse contract out there until mid-June. So I couldn't really ditch her because that'd be real shitty. So I stayed out there. Didn't really have anywhere to throw because facilities were closed. They weren't letting anybody in. And I had played with this guy, Seth Blair, last year, and he lived out in Arizona over in Scottsdale. So I hit him up, and he told me, I got a mound, just hit me up whenever you want to come over. And I was like, yeah, cool, didn't even think about it. Like, why would I need to go throw in somebody's backyard? And thanks to Corona, I had to. So I hit him up, and he had a mound back there. We were throwing into a rubber mat hanging off a trampoline from whatever, like 40 feet away. So it was kind of a rugged place just to start, but he had a mound, he had somewhere I could throw, so I did that. We go there about twice a week for bullpens, and then he had a little tiny weight room in his garage, so I'd work out there too. And then he was also training to play again. He's a free agent, so he was training to pitch. And then I was throwing. My brother was with me. He was out in Arizona too, so he'd come over to throw with us. And then a couple other guys that Seth knew needed a place, so then a couple more guys came over. Pacheco, Danny Holton with the Cubs, just a couple other guys. And then it kind of turned into just this little backyard baseball thing. And then the pitching doctor, who has become pretty popular on Instagram, he knew Seth Blair, so he had come over to work with Seth, and then he started working with a couple of our guys, and kind of whoever showed up, and he would show us some things, and a lot of the things that he was showing us was helping guys gain velo and gain it pretty quick. So it kind of became a really good competitive environment. I think me and Blair went back and forth for probably 2 weeks straight of two bullpens. It was his bullpen. He threw 96 that day, and then I went like 96.8. And then I had the record. So then the next bullpen he had was like 97.3 and then 97.9. And we just kept going back and forth, honestly. And it was awesome to see. And the other guys were thrown in too. And it was like the next guy would show up that day, and it was, hey, like, whatever, 97 today, and I was like, oh, like, no, just a 96, or like, yeah, I got 98 today.
Yeah, just a 96. Yeah.
It just, that's what it ended up being by the end. It was like, only 98 today. No triple digits. But no, a lot of the stuff he was showing us was awesome, and we started bouncing ideas off of him, and then talking to each other, and just learning so many new things, and just kind of how to move your body the right way, in a rotational manner, linear fashion, how to get more behind the ball, just all these sorts of little things that all connect, that ended up helping us all gain a pretty good amount of velo in a pretty short amount of time.
Yeah, now you're in a triple digit club, which is unbelievable.
I am. It's awesome. It was on a stalker too, so that definitely counts.
Yeah.
You got people out there doubting it, but there's multiple guys, and there was one point he brought his own stalker gun, so we had 2 stalker guns, and then a couple weeks ago they had a TrackMan unit come in, and Seth threw 100 on that. So, I mean, the stuff is real. I don't know how you can doubt it anymore.
No, 100%. And I think the people that are doubting it are the ones that are like, I don't know, taking their pitch logic ball and trying to rip it up and see what that.
Yeah. They threw 100 on pitch logic, and they want to claim that too.
Yeah. So if it's not a stalker, it's not real. But going back to that real quick, I think the environment is huge. Like, I know, coming from Maine, for me, there's not really a big baseball facility around, or, besides the University of Maine, there really isn't like high level baseball going on in the States. So like, if you're a kid listening to this, or a dad, or somebody that has like a competitive facility around, or you want your son to get up and play against the big guys, a lot of the kids I work with are 14U, like just starting to get into high school. And I think the more like challenging environments, the competitiveness, like I feel like that just brings the best out of people. And, if one dude gets up there throwing 97, then all of a sudden, everybody else is like, oh, shoot, I better I better get going. Is that kind of, you said that's sort of how it was like, and you guys were all pros too, to where you guys are, and it's so hard to make adjustments on things. Once you get to 90, that 95 mile an hour jump from, 90 to 95 is huge. And then I'm sure going from 95 to 100, that's got to be another. Did you experience kind of that same thing? I know for me, going from 90 and I touched 95 once, like it was a struggle, it's always harder to climb. Did you have that same experience going 90, 95 and then 95 to 100?
Oh yeah. I had, like I said, I was averaging like low 90s. I had hit 95 once in college, and then maybe twice in pro ball, but it was like the stars had to align that day. Arm felt good. You got 1 inning to blow it out, whatever. You felt good. It was a little humid that day, so the ball was a little stickier, and you could pull down on it a little more. And I honestly thought it wasn't going to be really attainable. Like on a good day, maybe I'll get a 5, and then if I get stronger, like maybe I'll get a 6 next year, and then a 7. But the environment is 100% a huge portion of it. Just being around all those guys. It was myself, my brother who's with the Rangers. Seth was a free agent, but he was a first rounder back in like 2012. He's like, I think he's 30 or 31. So he was a first rounder. Danny Holton was a first rounder. He was a September call-up, I believe, last year. Who else was over there? Jake Junis came over. Merrill Kelly. Tim Melville was over there. It's just like a lot of big names, and you kind of expected to go over there and get better. So that's half the battle, is when you're going over there already expecting to get better, expecting to see some really good stuff. And then when it's your turn, you're expected to also perform at that level. But it wasn't a pressure situation to perform at that level. It was kind of expected. You're around these guys, they're just like everyone else. You're around these guys, talk to them, talk ideas, and then it's your turn on the mound. And, the lights go on and everyone's watching you, and it's the environment is a huge portion of it.
Yeah. So you got any secrets you can share with the Punch Out podcast here on kind of what took you from, 95 to 100, or something that you you can kind of spread the word on, that helped you get a couple extra miles an hour?
I had to say one thing. Even I've tried it with a couple kids I've worked with too, and it works for some of them. Um, he had watched one of the pitching doctor had watched one of my bullpens, like one of the first ones, and he came over and he just told me, he saw a few pitches and he said, "Finish with your arms, crossed out front like this." And I was kind of confused at that, and it just didn't look right. He's like, just trust me, just do it, try it. I want to see what happens. So I did that. I was like 91, 93 that bullpen, and then he told me to do that, and I think I popped a 4 on the first one. And I was like, oh, that felt a little different. I don't really know what was different about it, but it felt different, and it worked, I guess. It was on the same radar gun. It was the next pitch, and then he said, all right, like, do it again, but do it even more. Okay. Then the next one was probably like 95, and then 95.5, and then 95.9. And the fastest I had thrown over there before that was 95.8. Like I said, when the stars aligned, I felt great that day. It was warm out. It was like 10 o'clock in the morning instead of 8 a.m. like we were usually showing up. But then that worked, and then it was like 96.1. He was like, hell yeah. And he's like, well, what's the hardest you ever thrown? I was like, that last pitch right there was the hardest pitch I ever threw in my entire life. He was like, hell yeah. So we were fired up. He didn't even know. He's just trying some things with me. And then I think that bullpen I ended up getting to like 97.1, or maybe like high 96s or something like that. But it was crazy. It was the hardest I ever threw in my life. Just from him saying to do that, whatever he saw, he gave me that cue, and it worked for me. I mean, some guys may not benefit from that, but I'm sure there's a lot of guys out there that maybe can try it. It doesn't mean actually literally finish like this, but just the mental cue of doing that promotes some kind of rotation or whatever that makes the ball go harder.
Yeah, so that's a classic example of, like, something works for somebody, it might not work for another, but it couldn't hurt to try it out. So, well, I'm gonna go see how that works tomorrow. Go out and throw a bullpen or something.
Yeah, hell yeah.
See what happens. But I think too, like, for the parents and sons that jump around, try to take lessons from different people. You can kind of try out whatever you like. It's not like one way isn't going to teach you how to pitch. Like me and Nick both throw differently, and it just, you can't expect everybody to move the exact same way. And I think the whole rotational power, like, pitchers are rotational athletes. Like, as much as it'd be really cool if I could dunk a basketball or run a 4.4 40-yard dash, like, this is not going to happen. But if I can hit a golf ball really far, I can hit a baseball really far, and if you can rotate, you can probably throw pretty fast too. So try out as many different things as you can do. And I think something that I've seen Nick do throughout college and now into pro ball is, like, it almost, when you started throwing harder, your command got better. Is that something that's true? I've watched him from the outside, but is that something, like, maybe the mechanics got tuned up a little bit better because you were throwing harder and then things kind of lined up, or what kind of was that like going?
I'm kind of half and half on that, probably. Just, I think moving more efficiently becomes, if you practice that more, then you become more consistent with that. And I think more consistency increases your command. If you're releasing the ball from a similar arm slot and you're practicing on the feeling from that arm slot every single time, you can make those adjustments. And then the other half of that is just the straight up mental side of it. I'm 100% more confident throwing a fastball or, a nasty breaking ball, whatever it is, if it's harder. I don't want to throw 86 over the plate, so I'm worried about, I got to paint the corner or this is going to get smashed, versus if I was, 92, then that ball is probably going to go more. It may move more. It's going to run. If you throw harder, it's harder to hit it. So if I'm 86, I'm probably not going to want to throw it over the middle. But if I'm 92, if I'm 95, if I'm 98, I'm not as scared to throw a fastball.
100% true. And you can't even dispute that it's faster. It's more difficult to hit a faster pitch. Like, go to the batting cage and
It's not.
go up higher and higher. And the faster it comes in, it's harder to hit it. And you can't dispute that. So, and I think too, like, more, it's just kind of a weird dynamic to see, like, younger people, like when I was 12 years old and when we're the same age. So, like, when I was growing up, like velocity was really never a thing. It's kind of like you learn how to pitch, maybe it'll get you to college. But when I made on my senior year, there's scouts watching games, there's guns. You're like, okay, like how fast was I? Like,
Yeah.
what was that? And it was kind of never a thing where now it's like, I got kids that are 13 and 14, like, oh, was that 70? Was that 73? I'm
Yep.
like, all right, well, nobody in the big leagues throws a fastball at 73, but I'm glad you know. It's just kind of a weird thing where I've seen people like start to get hung up on it a little bit, and I feel like I'm hung up on it myself, trying to throw 100, but it's something that's never going to go away, I think. But now that people got technology to track stuff, and I feel like it's good for the younger kids too, where if you're throwing, I don't even know how hard a 12-year-old would throw. That would,
Couldn't even tell you.
like, I don't know what that translates to, but like a Little League World Series kid, I'm sure you're going to see that ceiling climb up.
Mm-hmm.
People are going to still throw faster and faster, where like Aroldis Chapman's 105 and Jordan Hicks, like, it's like the average reliever, I'm sure it's getting faster each year. The average,
Major League fastball average has gone up every single year. It has not stalled. It hasn't gone down. It has gone up. Whether it's like, point 0.2 every year, 0.2, 0.3, up 0.3. It's gone up every year since whatever they started tracking it, like in the early 2000s or something. Every single year. And I think it's at like maybe high 93 right now, almost 94.
yeah, which is unbelievable. And so
Unbelievable.
it's like, you got to be able to pitch once you get there. And I feel like you can speak to this a little bit too with the Padres philosophy. You got so many guys in your organization blowing smoke. Like, the Padres are notorious for just fireballers. Like, what, you don't have to give any secrets here, but what's kind of it been like with the Padres and the development that has been going on with all? I mean, you see their MLB bullpen. The dude Munoz
Oh,
throws
yeah.
a million. Like, what's it been like?
It's I don't think there's any secret that we have a ton of guys that throw hard. I think honestly the not our philosophy, but just in general, throwing hard will get you chances. But I mean, you could throw 100 and spike fastballs and walk everybody, and you're not going to make it. So velo is going to give you that chance, which is why all the scouts have the guns and stuff. But you do have to learn how to pitch, learn to get outs. Learn a second pitch, learn a third pitch. It's not all about velo, but velo will give you your chances, and higher velo will make your other stuff better too. Um, but I had played with actually in Vancouver when we were playing. Chris Beck, Munoz was in the bullpen. I believe he was coming off TJ that time, so he was going to be with us for like a month, and he was blowing steam every outing. I mean, triple digits every outing, doesn't matter if he was saying, oh, like, my arm's a little sore in the bullpen, and then Vancouver game just blows 102, like it's nothing.
Jeez.
And we see him after, they're like, man, you just said your arm's sore. Yeah, man, it's a little sore. I was like, okay, well, it's going to be sore tomorrow, I guess, too, then. Jordan Guerrero, who I've been playing with since, that Tri-Cities team, and then a bunch of last year. I'm good friends with him. He's upper 90s, touching 100. Our big league bullpen, Gerardo Reyes, Win Genner throws cheese. There's a bunch of guys that throw hard. So you're in an environment where you need to throw hard, and you kind of see, the big leaguers throw hard. Where am I? I'm a righty reliever throwing 90, 91. That's probably not going to get it done unless you can, you have a nasty second pitch and you can spot that thing wherever you want. So I think velo does give you a little more leeway with mistakes. But as you get up, you can't make those same mistakes because those guys are seeing 95 plus every night now. So they're just getting accustomed to that. And then it just keeps going up. And then the pitchers throw harder and the hitters get accustomed to that. And then the pitchers throw harder. They start moving it around and that kind of thing. So it's a hard balance. But yeah, it's been fun to see. And it's good to be around those kinds of guys because honestly, it kind of inspires you to, throw hard or, it's not going to work out.
Yeah, I think that's it's kind of the thing where, pitching always seems to have that step ahead where, you've heard the saying, like, good pitching will beat good hitting 10 out of 10 times. And it's the type of thing where, the pitching's only going to get better and better, and the hitters will try to adjust. And I think the biggest thing was the launch angle, if you want to call it that, or, guys hitting, like getting better at hitting pitches low in the zone. Is there any sort of shift that you've seen in the minors where guys are, I know spin rates will have a thing to do with carrying the ball up in the zone, or, there's more metrics available, but have you seen some shift in the minors where, more guys are attacking low pitches, or is there something that, you could give to a younger kid and say, maybe practice that catcher's mask height fastball or something like that? Like what
Yeah.
do you got on that?
Yeah, I think a big thing in pro ball, so kind of something that I learned, is changing eye level and being able to throw low pitches, high pitches. Growing up, whatever everybody says, you get the fastball at the knees, throw to the, pitch to the knees, pitch to the knees. And I don't know, there was no data behind it. I was too naive to ask about any data behind it. Nobody really did, because data wasn't really a thing. And you kind of just tried for that. But I don't know if I noticed anything from myself pitching that guys can hit low pitches. I just figured, this is pro ball. Guys can hit pitches in the zone. They'll hit pitches out of the zone, low, high, whatever. But I've seen some stuff on, like the spin rate and release height and that kind of thing, and how, vertical lift is great. And, Garrett Cole shoves and Verlander shoves, because they got high spin rate, or, the ball's rising because, it's not actually rising, but just with all the vertical lift, spin rate, that kind of thing. And guys with the launch angle uppercut swings, like Cody Bellinger is a big visual for that. He crushes low pitches, and by the time you get to pro ball and there's scouting reports and stuff, there's those adjustments that get made. The guys can't hit the high pitches anymore, so then we're going to attack the high part of the zone. Now they all want to hit the low pitches. Guys can crush low pitches because they're almost swinging like golfers, and the barrel's rolling through the zone low. So a lot of guys are teaching to get four steamers, vertical lift, throw up in the zone, belt high. And it was always frowned upon to throw belt high because those are the pitches that get smashed. But I think with all the new technology and developing pitches and spin rate and all that kind of thing, people are finding out new things. And I think the hitters are going to adjust back to it, and it's just going to go back and forth.
Yeah, because I feel like for a time it was like the sinker cutter style of, like, maybe 2012, 13. Like, I'd watch, old Red Sox games, or, World Series stuff that comes on MLB Network, like flashbacks, because there's nothing on TV. And this like sinker, cutter, slider, like low 90s, just splitting the zone, that type of thing. And it's like, man, hitters really couldn't touch that. Where nowadays that feel like that gets smacked. And so now everything's kind of up in the zone. I wonder, you think it ever will go back to, it's kind of like cyclical, where maybe the sinkers will come back, or what do you think on that?
I think it might come back. I think you need to command every part of the zone, not just throw everything low or throw everything high, throw everything in, throw everything out. You need to be able to mix everything, but I think it'll go back and forth. I didn't really notice a trend until somebody had brought it up to me. With these uppercut swings and everything, you're pitching low, like that stuff gets smashed, and then started pitching up. I actually was looking at some stuff earlier, and I found that even my pitches up in the zone, I threw mostly two seams. I'd say 90% two seam fastballs, which I can get some pretty good sink on it, but it's usually run. But I found that I think the batting average, whatever, guys were hitting my low pitches better than the high pitches, even if my arm slot was kind of low, throwing two seamers. But I guess I had more success up in the zone, and I didn't even know that. And that's kind of the thing of, like, this data is out there, but it doesn't matter how much data you have to be able to apply it.
And that's the thing too, where some people, you don't know what you don't know. And so if it's like, well, my stuff seems to be doing well down, I'll stay there. And then it's not, and you're like, oh my God, why? It's like you kind of are in the dark until things kind of come around, and you're like, okay, maybe I do throw a little bit better when it's higher in the zone, and that kind of thing. Because just some of the overlays you posted, your ball moves a ton crisscrossing the corner and that sort of stuff. You got any grips you could share here for the people watching on YouTube? I'd love to take you through the whole mix here. What do you got?
I have them. I actually have them posted all on my Instagram page, on one of my highlights. But first one is just a two seam. I used to be conventional, fingers together on the runway with the thumb right under. And I was getting under it and sometimes cutting it just because my thumb would slip off this way, ball would
Yep.
come off that way a little bit. So I spread my fingers out, got it kind of on the laces there, and then I'll mess with the thumb grip just a little bit depending on the day. Sometimes it'll be a little more on the side, sometimes a little more underneath. But if I get it on the side, it'll give it a little bit more run. If I start getting down here, that's when I start cutting it. So that's my two seam. That's mainly what I throw for fastball, and then four seams, just a regular four seam. Horseshoe on the right. I used to be horseshoe on the left, and then that started twisting and cutting also. So I went back horseshoe on the right, keeping the middle finger behind the ball on the lace. And then I'll go change up. I worked a lot on this off season. I was super questionable with my change up, never really threw it. But I worked a ton on it and found a grip that worked for me. So middle finger inside this lace. Let's see if you can see it. Kind of
Yep.
inside this lace and pull down this way. Ring finger kind of just resting on that lace, but mainly, and then kind of a circle, getting the index finger off a little bit. The main part was pulling down this way on the lace to get that kind of spin out of my hand.
Yeah. Are you looking for that perfect like side spin on it, or what are you trying to go for? I
I'm
know.
not trying for the perfect side spin. I think I've been on a Rapsoda a little bit, and it's been, closer to a side spin. But my efficiency on it is actually pretty decent.
I would just think because
I'm
your
not,
slot's kind of out here where you could really get, you could get on the side of it a little bit and like,
yeah.
you know,
I pronate and pull down on that. I'm not really thinking about axis too much when I'm throwing. I just want it feeling good, spinning off the fingers, and I like to see the action. And whatever the axis and spin rate and whatever all that is good. But I
yep.
think a good visual for me is when you see that run, you see that tail, and then you get it on the pocket radar, and you're throwing fastballs that day, and then you're trying to get it. I'm trying to get it like 7 to 10 off the fastball with the same intent, with that whole shape, and then slider too, which is my favorite pitch. Don't tell any hitters I said that. Doesn't matter because I got no chance. I went from a two seam. I actually thought I tried a bunch of different ones kind of in college again. And then I thought back to when I threw in middle school, when I first started throwing curveball. I used to throw it like a two seam, and then this is the two seam, and then just cup the finger under. And then I kind of adjusted that to be, I moved the index finger up just a little bit like this to keep it off. So focus on the middle. And then I'm cupping this seam right here kind of with my entire finger, and then throw it as hard as I can and snap it as hard as I can like a curveball. I used to call it a curveball, but my arm slot is a little lower, so it ends up being sweeping.
Yep.
I try to throw that thing as hard as I can and I snap it. I think about snapping like this and throwing and snapping as hard as I can like a curveball. And just for me, that ends up being a little bit of a slider.
Yeah, that's awesome. Because I messed around and I saw people that like had a straight up two seam grip for like a slider and that, or like would tuck the thumb. And like, I tried the same thing and I'm more over the top with mine, but I had such a hard time getting like a consistent break on it. Sometimes it'd be, just straight down or, I had a hard time differentiating between like a curveball that I throw just one over the top that would be more top to bottom. I could never find like threw a little cutter once just because I needed a pitch that moved to the right or to the left. And I kind of messed around with that same type of grip where you have it in the middle of the ball, but my thumb always would get caught underneath and I would get around it a little bit. So, even when we were talking before with that thumb kind of messing with that position, I feel like that helps too. Where you can sweep it a
Yeah, I
little
kind of
more.
pull down on this C here. So I cut, but there's a little bit of space in between the thumb there, but
Yep.
not too much. If I take it off, I can shape it better. So if I cup it way more, it'll be slower and bigger. Than if I take my thumb off just a little bit and rip a little, it'll be faster, but not as big.
Yeah. What's the speed differential usually that you kind of go for with your slider, off your fastball? What are you looking for?
Last year fastball was like 91 and slider was 77 or 78. I wanted to decrease that range. I thought it was a little too much. So I
Yep.
was looking, that's what, like 13, 14. I wanted it to be like 8 to 10.
Yeah.
So I definitely wanted to throw it harder. So if I can get, 8 to 10 off 95, that's like 88.
Yeah. Yeah. because that'd be
85, 88 would be a pretty decent range.
yeah, that's what I mean. I had the same type of thing with sliders and curveballs. It was just too slow, and so I've been messing with different ways that I could. I've even tried putting pressure on my, index finger. Maybe that just keeps it fastball just for a second longer, and then I'm literally trying to like slash the zone. Like I'm thinking, like if I had a sword in my hand, I'm literally trying to just chop the top right to bottom left at the very last second, like pretty stiff wrist, and just rip that thing as hard as I can. And we'll see what it looks like when I throw in a gun tomorrow. But I feel like the faster your stuff is, the better it gets. And I'm sure your ball probably moves like 3 feet, you cross the whole plate.
I got to get some more video on it soon, but yeah, I got to set that up from behind. I love the views from behind, and then seeing the changeup, fastball, slider, everything.
Yeah, you ever messed with a curveball, or are you sticking with those 3 right there?
I've tried a curveball, thinking about a curveball, but it's pretty tough for my arm slot just getting, this way. It's basically a curveball. Like I said, I used to call it a curveball, so I would snap and throw like a curveball. Think curveball, visualize curveball, not so much 12-6, but kind of a diagonal one with my arm slot, and then it kind of ended up. It's a little sweeping, and then ended up being a decent slider, and now I just call it a slider because then I just think about being more aggressive with it, and slider, I'm gonna punch you out, slash, that kind of thing, not curveball, like lazy, spin it, get me over.
Yeah.
Literally calling it a different pitch just changes a little bit of the mentality of it.
Totally, because you're never going to want to throw a slow slider like that.
No.
That's just not a thing. So
it doesn't even sound good.
No. Because I feel like a lot of the younger kids too, like you said, you started throwing it like middle school, like 7th, 8th grade. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think it was like a Babe Ruth game at the middle school. I was probably little. I mean, you mess with it in Little League, but it's not really too much. So probably, like 13 or 14, mixing in a breaking ball. And back then it was basically you throw fastball, curveball, changeup, and then sliders kind of started leaking into like younger kids, and they said stay away from the sliders, like you'll get hurt, that kind of thing. So I never threw a slider, and was taught curveball, so I did curveball, and then as the arm slot changed and velo changed and how you threw, I kind of just developed into that.
That's kind of what I've seen too, is like a lot of the kids, they want to have the huge curveball.
Exactly what I wanted. Look how much it's moving. That's so awesome.
Bro, this thing moves so much. Like, yeah. And it turns into like, okay, that's just gravity pulling that thing.
Exactly.
That's not going to get anybody out. And so I posted about this on Instagram. The other, like one of the kids he has that similar arm slot to you where it's a little bit out to the side. He's like, bro, what do you think of my curveball? Watched it. I'm like, you're throwing a slider, right? And he goes, no, am I? Like, I heard that's bad for your arm. I'm like, well, it's bad for your arm if you throw it wrong. Like, if you like turn the doorknob, it's really bad for your elbow. But like, if you get your wrist out front of it and rip on that seam, it's just you're trying to get the ball to spin differently. Like a curveball is going to spin top to bottom. A slider just gets a little bit more on the side. And he's like, no way.
Wow, that's some great insight.
Wow. And I'm like, see, we just need people to talk about stuff more, even if it's like basic stuff. Well, basic to me is like, okay, yeah, my curveball should spin like this, then slider should go like this. But like my 13, 14-year-old self would like eat that up, where, I would look for anything. Like, the state of Maine had like 4 coaches that ever played in college. So like, I was looking for anybody to talk to me about stuff. And I feel like social media now, with you got Kuz pitching, you got punch out pitching, there's going to be more outlets for people to just learn stuff. And I feel like even if it's parents that are following it, the kids are following it, I think my 14, 15, 16-year-old self would be like eating up all the Instagram stuff I could, like go out in the backyard and rip stuff. Were you kind of that same kid growing up where you just couldn't get enough? And or what was it like in Connecticut?
Yeah, we played. I think the biggest thing was honestly wiffle ball that we played when we were younger. I kind of visualized that when I was when I was throwing pitches, if it was flat, it wasn't moving. I was like, well, that's going to get smashed. I want it to look like a wiffle ball when I'm throwing it. So
Yeah.
I'm throwing two seamers that are moving. I'm throwing sliders that are moving. I'm throwing, change ups are way off, or throwing knuckleballs, whatever it is. I was trying to get it to move like a wiffle ball, and we would play wiffle ball so much. Actually, my backyard and my friend's backyard, we had like mini stadiums. We got like construction fence, put that up,
That's sick.
like a sign on the chimney, had a little scoreboard, like made a strike zone, that kind of thing, bases, everything. We, like every weekend, like, hey, we're coming over, putting the lights on. Like we got some floodlights. My dad had some construction lights. We'd play all night, and it was just go out there and play a bunch of wiffle ball. It wasn't.
You were trying to think about anything.
No, we weren't thinking. We were just, having fun. And then I'd go back outside, whatever, during the week, throw a tennis ball off the chimney. And then if I missed the chimney, it hit the house, so my dad would get pissed. So then I would learn to have to hit the chimney, and there was a little like metal grate on it, which was like, belt high for a kid, 12 years old or whatever. So I'd stand there and I'd pitch against that and try to throw with a tennis ball, like throw curveballs into it, sliders, fastballs, do like simulated games in my mind for like, half hour before dinner, because I was bored, and
Yeah.
just or throwing balls off the roof and not being able to see it and wondering where it's going to go and then react to it. So it's like all these things that I didn't even think of at the time is super helpful for any kind of development, and it was just super fun to me.
I was the same way, but with that like pitch back where it's like straight and then it kicks out a little bit.
Yep. Oh yeah, everyone had one of those.
Oh my gosh, I must have thrown 100 games to that thing. Like
Oh yeah.
backyard baseball, like just throw it as hard as I could into that thing, and you mess up, the ball freaking flies over your head and all that sort of stuff. But just being a kid, and I think the sport specialization is a thing that comes into people's minds where you want your son so bad to play college baseball, or if it's college basketball or whatever sport that it is. Did you grow up playing other sports in Connecticut?
Yeah, I just want to say one thing: you can't get a scholarship when you're 10 years old. It's just not going to happen.
True, 100%.
But parents think that and they get crazy. But yeah, I played soccer, basketball, and baseball growing up. I played soccer all 4 years of high school. I played 2 years of basketball my first 2 years. We weren't very good. It was not really so much fun to me anymore. And winter was the time where baseball players, you could lift, work out, train, get better. So I stopped after sophomore year and took junior and senior year to develop and get stronger, because I was like probably 6 foot, 135 pounds, soaking wet. Like I was a twig and couldn't throw hard, couldn't hit hard. And I wanted to play college baseball at that point. And that's kind of when I made a decision, was probably like my sophomore year of high school. And there's these kids out there at like 13 years old, like, I'm gonna play college baseball, and they're specializing already. And I think you can wait till you get into high school probably for that. You're still growing. But I did that, and then I played my 4 years of baseball, and then that turned into college baseball.
Yeah, I want to hear. Before we wrap it up, I want you to tell your whole recruiting story of how you went from 77 and kind of know where to go, or you had a JUCO thing. Like, just tell that story, where I feel like people, if it's not Division I, sometimes people turn their heads up at it, where it's like, no, I don't want to do this. But for you, it turned into, I had this thing for, I don't want to tell your story, but
Yeah. Just to start, I know a lot of kids are D1 or bust, and that was me growing up. I was in high school. I was like, I'm going D1. I want to go D1. My brother went JUCO, and then he went D1. So I was like, well, I want to beat him. I don't want to be known as, the brother that wasn't as good. I want to go D1. And, I was looking at schools. I was like, I want to go to Wake Forest, and I'm looking up all schedules and, how are they doing, how they do the last couple of years, and like kind of researching that, and like, I don't want to go to this school because they didn't do too good, or, where is it? I want to go in this, Southern Division I school. I was throwing my junior summer, which was big recruiting time back then. Now they just recruit you as basically an 8th grader. But that summer I was topping out at 77. My perfect game profile still says it online. I was 70, 73, 76 or something, and topped out at 77 at a perfect game tournament. And I got a few looks from like Salve Regina, Endicott. Actually, no, the Endicott coach didn't even like me much. Eastern Connecticut, like a couple D3s, and I wasn't happy with it. And luckily, I was a real smart kid in school. I was a nerd in high school, and then I kind of tapered out, but I focused on baseball. But I had some pretty good grades, so I was getting, academic money to go to these D3 schools, and it was still going to be super expensive, and I wasn't really attracted to that idea. So then my brother had gone to a JUCO, Herkimer College, up in upstate New York, and we had a good connection with that coach, and he was like, "Hey man, like we got a spot for you here. We know your brother, we know your family. Would love to have you." And I was like, "Honestly, yeah, like I'll go there." He knew I wanted to go D1, so I committed there. I just kind of signed a contact form sheet at the kitchen table. Wasn't even an NLI. They didn't have them. So I had that. I was committed to JUCO. Went senior season, committed to JUCO, and my high school guidance counselor was like, "What are you doing going to there? Like, you're top 10 in your class. Why are you going to community college? You could go anywhere." And they just didn't get the sports side of it. So I was committed there, and then I don't know what it was. I got stronger from lifting and all that with my trainer. But then we had showcases coming up for that senior summer. So the summer after my senior year of high school, I was committed to JUCO. There was a showcase that my team had run, and I was 84, 86 that bullpen in that summer, 2 months before my freshman year of college started. So the coach at Lowell, pitching coach at UMass-Lowell, had seen me there, told his head coach about me. They were in contact with me a little bit, and then they got me up for a visit. The head coach came and saw me at another, travel ball game. I think I was 83, 85 that game. So it was kind of a little spurt in velo there. UConn was kind of talking to me, but I wanted to go to school out of Connecticut. I wanted to get out for whatever reason. I just did. I think they had a roster spot or something for me, but Lowell had offered me a scholarship. And it was a good opportunity. There was a lot of opportunity to be had for freshman pitching. They had a lot of seniors, but a lot of position players for it. So there was a ton of innings to be had to fight for, which I was fine with going there doing, which I think is important for a lot of kids, is go where you're going to play. I was going to go to JUCO. You're going to play at JUCO because there's only freshmen and sophomores. So I knew I was going to get innings there. And then Lowell popped up, so I was going to get a chance at innings there, and I knew how to work for it. So I went there. I committed there 2 months before I was going to show up there on campus. They fast forwarded all the things, all the paperwork. I was late for the deadline, but the coaches put it through, and honestly, having good grades and just like a good reputation in high school and that kind of thing helped them push me through. So even good grades can help you get scholarships, but in a situation like that, it can help you there too. So I got that, and then the rest was history. I got to campus there.
That's pretty awesome. I didn't know you were that smart.
Yeah, I was. I just went down, and I think I had a 4.0 my freshman fall semester, and then each semester it ended up just going down just a little bit. You get your first B, and then mix in a C there.
That's so funny.
I started focusing on it. Was like baseball. School went down, but baseball was going up. Start focusing on that a little bit.
I think it's working out all right for you. But I think that's an awesome story where, and probably too growing up, you saw your brother kind of go through it, to which, pushed you as hard as it did. And to make it to going from junior college to, the last minute breaking rules and getting through deadlines and getting to UMass-Lowell, playing. And for you guys too, for a little bit of time, it wasn't even you guys weren't eligible for the playoffs too. Like you left that part out where there was innings to be had, and then but there was no postseason on the line, which always, at Maine being in UMass-Lowell's conference, we played you guys a million times, but we were like, how do these guys even stay motivated to
There's nothing to play for.
Nothing to play for.
And I knew that up front, and I was kind of okay with it. It was the only Division I offer I had, so I was like, well, I kind of want to take it, and it was a good opportunity, and it worked out financially. But I knew that was a sacrifice that I was going to make if I went there, and it was in Lowell, Massachusetts, which is cold as hell. But it was in Massachusetts, and that was outside of Connecticut. D1 innings to be had. It was awesome. I love the coaching staff there. And that's kind of when I went there. And my brother always asked me, like, why would you pick that school? Like, you can't play in playoffs. What are you playing for? All that kind of thing. And it was my freshman, sophomore, and junior year were the final 3 years of the 4-year suspension thing or whatever, the inauguration. And then, yeah, I'd signed after junior year, so I didn't even get a chance to play in it when they did. But I went back and watched them a little bit. But I don't know. I didn't think much about it other than, oh, that's the end of the season. We don't get to play. Like, it kind of just sucks kind of thing. But then there's summer ball, and then
Yeah.
there's, personal development, that kind of thing. So
Totally. It's not like it's the end of the road, really. Like, your season ends, but you're going to the Cape, you're going to the New England League or whatever. Like, I don't know. As much as it kind of sucks from the outside, like, you guys definitely made the most of it with how hard you trained, and you knew, this many weeks out from the end, and you kind of can blow it out there at the end. Like, you popped in 95, a couple weeks before, maybe a month before the end of the season, and then
yeah,
you're getting calls from the Rangers, the Angels, the everybody. I mean, it kind of takes, one good day, and you're on the radar. Is that kind of similar to what you experienced?
yeah. We had when we had our new pitching coach come in, he did a great job with development. Sean McGrath. He came over from Iona, got a bunch of us throwing harder, honestly, and made baseball fun again. He made pitching fun. He made it competitive. He made it, like, some teams don't like it to be, pitchers versus hitters, but that ends up being the environment because we do a lot of inter squad stuff, so we're facing our own hitters a ton to prepare for the season. So I mean, it's good to have competitive environment. So I enjoyed it. But yeah, there was some times that I did good in front of scouts, and sometimes I'll tell you one time in Cary, North Carolina, in front of coordinators and high-level scouts. I had it was in the beginning of the season. I started game one of that tournament against Dayton. I think I went 2+ innings, gave up 7 runs, no punchies. Terrible outing, and just put a bad taste in the mouth of a lot of teams. And it was tough to come back from that. And that was probably one of the outings that was a reason that I didn't get drafted. But whatever, that's their fault, their loss. But there was other times, that time I came out of the bullpen and I hit 95 for the first time. A scout or two was there to see that. It was kind of the guys that kept coming back routinely to see the consistency, and not just, that one bad outing or the one really good outing. They kind of wanted to see consistency over time. And I think that was a big jump for me, was, going from touching 90 and like kind of 86, 88 in a fall game, to, being at a consistent 89, 91, 89, 92, that kind of thing, going through my routine, pregame routine, postgame routine. They watch all that. They take notes on all that. But obviously most important is how you perform in the game.
Yeah, that's a good thing to end on. Is, people are watching, and you don't know who's at your game, or, especially when you get to college, it's like there's just people around the field all the time, and you honestly never know who's watching what you're doing or what you're saying. And, yeah, I've heard stories of people at the hotel, like, there's a scout that was just normal clothes, and people were screwing around in the elevator, and
Yeah.
out that's why this guy never got picked by this team, blah, blah, blah. The list goes on. But like you said, the consistency is what plays. That's what keeps you around, and, your team counting on you for, every fifth day, you're going to go out there and start, or you need an inning that night, you're good for it. The next day, you're good for it. Just being out there and being healthy, being mobile, being strong, being able to move and survive the super long bus rides that come with
Mm-hmm.
high level baseball, and then being able to go out, put the cleats on, and go out there and throw it 100. That's the secret.
That's the deal. Half the battle's showing up on time, man. I tell you, show
Yep.
up on time and do what you're supposed to, and then take the rest from there.
Yeah. You got anything else? Any last words that you want to share with, maybe the young kid, or the parent that's listening to this, or something that you just want to share?
Just keep baseball fun, however you got to do that. I know I still enjoy it, and you don't want to get burnt out too quick, but just keep the fire sparked.
100%. That's some of the best advice you can have right there. So that's the episode with Nick Kuzia. Kuz Pitching. You can find him on Instagram, on Twitter. He's a great follow. So you're going to find a whole bunch of good stuff on there, and we'll have to do this podcast again too. Check in on you once the season, maybe a little off season check in, see how things are going. You're going to have
hopefully something can come
followers
through
by then, and we're gonna be talking even more stuff. Hopefully, I'm up over 95. You're up over 100 by the next time we talk. I'll be sending you videos to take a look at. And
Oh yeah.
I'm sure I'll be finding Instagram things to tag you in too. So
yeah, I'm sure he'll have about 50,000 followers by then too.
We're working on it. We're taking this thing to the moon. So I'm glad to have you on. Thanks for taking the time.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.